I'm Dr. Brandy.
I'm Dr. Joe.
And you're in for a
hell of a ride.
Everything life, love, and legacy.
Yes, yes. Buckle up.
Let's ride.
Let's ride.
So in this episode, we talked a lot about healing and relationships and ruptures. And so our challenge for you is a very critical one. The challenge for you is to sit, light a candle, set some music, and identify what is it that I still need to heal from. And there's some resources to help you navigate that journey.
Yeah, for those of you who you've been sitting around trying to figure out how to do it yourself, I'm here to let you know that you can't. All right? You can't.
You don't have to.
Yeah, and you don't have to. And so what that means is, I created a resource called How to Find a Therapist, an ebook that you can go get at purposeoverdreams.com. All right, go get the book, How to Find a Therapist. All right, it's a real simple ebook, but it's going to walk you through step by step on how you can find the right therapist for yourself so that you can begin or continue your healing process.
Bam.
Take care.
I'm Dr. Brandy.
I'm Dr. Joe.
You're in for
a hell of a ride.
Everything life, love, and legacy.
You got it.
Yes.
Anyways, what's going on?
Buckle up.
Buckle up.
What's your weather report?
Hold on. I'm about to buckle up for this one.
Let's ride. What's your weather report, yo?
My weather report is there's clouds over there.
Clouds broaching.
There's clouds approaching, broaching. Yeah.
I feel a little anxious. I think a little bit.
That's why I said it's cloudy.
Yeah.
A little bit of anxiousness, anxiety. But we're here.
Yeah, I think I feel a little tender. Like, I think sometimes I feel more grounded and settled and, like, secure. And then other times I feel a little, like, super vulnerable, super tender. So for those reasons, I would say that it is a little chilly. I need a jacket. I need some protection.
You need a jacket.
It's a little nippy.
Yeah.
It feels a little nippy.
No, that's real talk. That's real talk. And so I think, like, I'm gonna throw it over to you.
Mm-hmm.
For what's top of mind.
Okay.
And we could kind of jump into it.
I think what's top of mind for me right now is health, happiness, peace. Like, I think I shared this with you recently that there are 3 things that I think are really on my spirit significantly, like really impacting me right now.
Uh-huh.
And one of them is, in this past year, I turned 40. So I've entered my 40th year.
Damn, you old.
Baby, I'm grown. Okay, I'm grown. I'm like, and so I think that matters to me because it feels very adult, very grown. I think still young, on the young side of grown, but also like I'm responsible for me.
Yeah. Like
I am responsible for me, for my happiness, for my joy, for my wealth. Like, it's mine, my responsibility. So I'm feeling a little bit of pressure in that way, but I'm also feeling really kind of like I'm embracing 40. Like, I know a lot of people that feel like 40 is old. I kind of feel like, okay, I'm here. It's time to like really show up. The other thing that's really impacting me is we have made really big pivotal changes personally and professionally in the last year. And I think on one hand, it's showing me like, wow, I'm really capable of anything. Yeah. And also like, I'm responsible for everything. Like, so it's kind of making me feel like, dang, okay, really tender in that way. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing that's really impacted me, of course, we talk about all the time, is my grandmother's health. And I am seeing a lot of her in me and a lot of me in her. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to keep it real. Some of the stuff I don't like. Like, some of the stuff I just don't like. Yeah. And I'm like, dang, I'm just like that. And I need to change that so that my kids aren't having to navigate this when I'm in my 80s.
For sure.
So I'm just feeling really tender in that way. Like, I'm responsible for myself. And then as a therapist, I work with amazing people on a daily basis that are really trying to do the same thing. So all of that is top of mind. We we've had a lot of episodes where we integrate health and wellness, but I feel like it's important to really focus on it a little bit. So what's top of mind for you?
Yeah. I think really this episode and kind of how we're going to talk about things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think there are a lot of people who are very private. And once you kind of put yourself out there, some things are no longer private, right?
Yeah, there's no turning back.
Yeah, there's no turning back. And, you know, my family's been on television and all kind of stuff. All of us, right? And so that's one thing. But I think sometimes you still can protect some of those more intimate specifics about your life that sometimes people just don't need to know, right? But I think it gets to a point where if you're really talking about health, wellness, joy, happiness, being authentic, it's okay to share your truth. You know?
Yeah, I think that's what's most valuable about Hell of a Ride, like about this podcast. And I think that's also what's most challenging about it is that we are on the same page and that we wanted to bring something that felt really organic and really genuine, but that also felt really multidimensional. Like we laugh, we have hard conversations. Our last episode entered unknowingly into a hard conversation.
For sure.
So
yeah.
Pause.
Oh, shut up. Who you talk? No, I'm messing with you. Look, I'm in the gym by myself. Listen, I know some of you all have some goals. Some of you all feel like you've been stuck. Some of y'all feel like you're ready to go to your next level. And if you're ready to do that, make sure you go to purposeoverdreams.com. I have a free resource for you, and you'll gain access to my masterclass. Take care.
So I think
this is what happens when you film in your house.
Right. Somebody at the door, y'all.
Yeah, somebody at the door.
So, but that's so funny how that happened when I said authentic, honest, genuine. Like right when I said that.
Yeah.
But this is real. Like this isn't a set. This is our house.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot that I think there's complexities to that. And so without saying too much, I think what's tender about this episode is we both have decided we really want to bring a conversation around what it means to be healthy, what it means to be well, mental wellness, mental health. And there's no way to talk about that without talking about intimate experiences related to like our relationship, related to our parenting, related to a lot of things. Yeah. And I think in the era that we're in, where we're so spoiled when it comes to access to people, it's important for us to discern what is sacred and what is private and what is useful.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is useful to me for my personal healing, what is useful to us for our shared and collective healing, and what is also useful to the public as far as like having real conversations. And then also what is sacred.
Yeah.
And I think that can be hard.
Yeah. I mean, everything that you said, and you know, when it's all said and done, I think like we've had many conversations. We've gone through a lot, been through a lot, and I'm throwing it back to you because I said I'm gonna let you lead.
See, what's funny though, you nervous, so you keep making me have to drive.
Well, sometimes
let's get an Uber. It's an Uber ride. Let's get one of them self-directed cars.
No, I think I think like I said, like we spoke, before this, and I said I'm gonna let you lead the way on this. I'll have input, but I think it's important for us to just acknowledge just what's going on.
Well, I will say right here and there, I'm not satisfied with that. I don't want you to have input. We are shared accountability. We're in this together.
Yeah.
And so we're going to go back and forth. We're going to be dynamic. I don't want...
Yeah, I'm not going to just sit back. No, by no means. But
I think so. I think one thing that we've kind of joked a little bit about is, well, I'll say this. I keep coming back because in the last episode I really was going in on how much I appreciated Worthy and Jada and Will. Like
I ain't saying nothing. I'm just listening.
keep going back to that, and I don't want to fixate on it, but it's an anchor that I have. I think one of the things I've teased about is I really don't want to live in a way that feels disingenuous and inauthentic. I also think that there's so many dimensions that unless you're in a relationship or unless you're the one running the business or unless you're the one parenting the kids, you don't know fully. You really just don't know fully. True. So one of the things that I think we're kind of talking around that we need to just say explicitly is that, you know, Joe and I are in a season relationally where we're kind of like not even sure what we're doing. Like we're really not sure. And I don't, right? Like, we're really not sure what we're doing. Like, one thing I know for sure is I love you. You love me. One thing I know for sure is you, as fine as you were the day I met you, probably even more fine. One thing I know about you is I have a lot of respect for you. One thing I know about you is that you're my family. You're the father to my kids. You're my person. I would even say soulmate. I also know that we ain't really fucking with each other like that right now. Like in a real romantic, intimate, like stereotypically romantic way. And I think that can be really confusing to people and to us. Does that feel fair?
Yeah. I mean, that feels fair. I think sometimes we know relationships go through things, but I think we also know that some things are harder to move through than others. Right. And I think instead of sitting in the funk and just energetically bringing that to you, to the home, you know, vice versa, we decided to have conversations about like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah. Like, how are you feeling? How am I feeling?
Yeah.
Like, what do you need? What do you need? Like, what do you want? What do you want? Can I give you that? Can you give me that?
Yeah.
Like, can I?
Yeah.
And like when you get to a place where we have been before and where we are now, where it's like, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can be that. I don't know. I'm struggling in this way and I'm struggling in that way. I think that's a really hard thing for couples. And I don't think people talk about that part of companionship very much. It's either like you see bliss and lovey-dovey, we're all together and we're super duper happy, whether that's true or not.
Right. Or
you see F you, I can't stand you, he ain't this, she ain't that, or you see that and you see breakup and disruption. And as a result of that dichotomy, people be dumbfounded. Like, oh, I knew they weren't gonna make it, or whoa, I didn't see that coming. And I think what feels important to us, or to me, I don't want to speak too much for you, is that gray, that like really like confusing kind of like, I know what feels right and I know what doesn't feel right. Like that gray is never really processed when people are navigating that. And that's why you have situations like with Jada and Will, where they was like, oh, we've been living separate lives for 7 years and everybody's all taking it personal.
Yeah.
It's because, if you read the books, it's because a part of it is they don't know. Like they're kind of probably trying to navigate whatever they're navigating. And I think that that's a common thing in relationships that people don't really expose or share.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of relationships, when I used to hear people say, we've been through it all, I didn't really know what that meant. You know what I mean? And I think now, having been around you for almost 17 years, been through it all is getting defined.
Yeah, I mean, we done, like we teased about last episode, we done been broke together. Mm-hmm. We done made money together. Mm-hmm. We have yet to, but we will be wealthy together, most likely. We have been without children. We've parented together. We've created businesses together. We've navigated academic stuff together. We've failed together. We've navigated infidelities together. like both of us, we've navigated a lot of that. And I think that's a big significant rupture we're having right now is like the aftermath of what happens when couples go through infidelities. I think we've navigated just conflict and values together. I think am I missing anything? We've navigated so much death together.
Yeah. And I think, at least on my end, I think it's important. And especially for, I don't want to say just the men, but, sometimes I think men need to hear certain things. But I think sometimes it's important to ask yourself, are you able to give somebody, your person, what they need after you've been through something? If you're trying to work through stuff mentally, like, and the other person is doing their work, you're doing your work, but you're still kind of struggling to work through things. Are you able to give them what they need in order for you all to be happy and kind of move forward and be successful and get past whatever the issue is? And I think sometimes the hard part of that is essentially not being able to say what's real. You know what I'm saying? Not being able to say, I'm no good for you right now. Right?
Which is honestly, it's a really sad thing, but it's actually a very loving thing. Do you see it that way?
Yeah.
I think it's actually a very loving thing when a person can own to some degree, I can't be or give what you deserve.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually a very loving thing.
Yeah, because, even if somebody, no matter who did what, there's a healing process that takes place. And I think, from my experience, when you've been hurt to a point that you've never kind of been hurt before, you don't know what it takes to get through that. And then while you're trying to get through that, you don't want to be the energetic force that's bringing the bad energy or bringing other people down, or even though it's your healing process, right? Like it gets to a point where you're impacting everything around you, and there's already so many other stressors going on.
Right.
And so, with that said, just for like clarity, like, it's almost like, yo, this ain't it right now. I need a break. Or I need this ain't, you know what I'm saying? Like
well, but this is what I think, Joe. I think this is why this episode, I think this is why we've struggled with this episode a little bit, because as we saw in the last season, people will go left, right, and in between on any little bit of content and turn it into their own personal thing. And you got to be careful with that. And you got to be able to tolerate that. So I think that's what's making this so tender, is because no matter what my truth is and your truth is, the people are going to experience it based upon the backdrop of their truth. And it's going to get convoluted that way. And I think the other thing that makes this really, I think the other thing that we talked about that is really important is that's why this episode isn't a relationship episode. It's an episode about wellness. It's an episode really about how do you take care of yourself? Like, how do you live? You didn't like this word last season, healthily. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah. But I think because I feel like there's a lot of code, right? Like we ain't giving everybody all the they don't need to know, right? But I think what's important is like and we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Is how do you share space and hold space
At the
same time when the person who you love and is in your space is the one that hurt you?
Yeah. That's the question for the public.
That's the question that I think a lot of people deal with.
Yeah.
And, you know, some people say like, you know, men take things different than women, or you know, there's always talk like that. But I think at the end of the day, some of us have a hard time moving past things. And sometimes it could be based on, you know, your programming growing up on how the world should look and how an individual should be, how you should be. And so sometimes it's important for us to be honest and say, I got to step all the way back and look at myself and really dig deep, you know, because are there times where relationships need to end? Of course, right? But then there are also times where, and I don't think people talk about this enough, where sometimes you got to be like, yo, I need to be away from you.
Yeah.
I can't be around. I don't, and it's not being malicious and some people do it, you know, with malice and, you know, nasty, but I think sometimes people feel that, but they'll never share it. And then it just turns into this crazy, a chaotic ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like there was an era in our relationship where what you're describing would have felt very threatening to me. It would have felt like you're not wanting to be around me is somehow an indicator of the fact that you don't love me or you don't care about me. And I think now, like in this particular season, I see it more as so many other variables are different though. Mm-hmm. But I think in this particular season, I experienced that as actually more a demonstration of accountability and love. I don't want to harm you with my energy. I don't want to hurt you with my hurt. But I need to take care of me. I need to figure out how to reconcile my pain. I feel like that's actually a very loving thing, especially when a lot of the pain that you have, I've contributed to. So to be able to extend to your partner compassion and consideration for the impact you bring into their life, even when that person has hurt you, I think is a very loving thing to do, a very mature thing to do. And I think for the viewers, I really feel like it's so important to kind of the point you were making earlier about women are this and men are this and women are that and men are this. That is a very surface level way of engaging in this particular episode, because what's more useful is exactly what you were kind of alluding to, which is like, okay, where do I personally, what is this particular relationship or circumstance, what is it bringing up in me personally? Not just my opinion about men and women, but as a woman, how does this feel as a Black 40-year-old woman that grew up this way with these values, with this, you know, with all this history, all this context, all this baggage? What is this teaching me about me?
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. So, and then I think, haven't had a minute to just like sit and kind of sit in everything that we're processing. I think a big thing too is like, it's very clear, we're articulating this, we're expressing this, that there's traumas that we're navigating, that you're navigating, that we're navigating, that I think we're both very accountable for. But in addition to the traumas, there's also like the typical vulnerabilities of companionship, like all of the competing demands, all of the competing needs that really make that really compromise intimacy with your partner. Like there's that part too. It's not just the trauma. Like as much as I feel blessed and we chose to become caregivers at this time, it has also compromised our finances, our time, our energy, our intimacy. I don't even sleep in our bed some of the times because I'm up at night with Gam. And kids do the same thing. When you have a lot of couples, when they have children, it really disrupts intimacy and connection. So we're definitely acknowledging trauma, but I think there's also the other really common competing demands on relationships where people wake up, you hear it all the time. I just feel like his roommate. He don't do this no more. She don't do that no more. We ain't smashed in 3 weeks. Like da 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 da. And there's that element of man, I feel really, really disconnected. I think that's a big thing too.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people don't. I don't even know if this is the best way to say it, but a lot of us don't know how to be hurt, right? Let me say what I mean. I think some of us, we've been programmed so long to just navigate the world no matter what's happening to you.
Right.
That we don't even know how to step back and say, oh, I'm hurt, or this bothers me, or this has created something in my mind where I can't get it off my mind. We don't know how to be hurt. And I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but essentially it sucks to hurt. But do you know what to do when that happens? And for yourself? And how do you function around other people?
You say, I don't know if that's the right thing to say or the right language.
The way to say it.
I think it's very profound, actually, because I know a challenge that I've had that has really showed up in our relationship a lot, and it's actually compromised a lot of things, is you're right. A lot of people pride themselves on being really resilient and really strong and really, I bend over backwards for people, and then they develop a lot of resentments. Mm-hmm. And those resentments connected to hurt then start to compromise their behavior, their choices, their character, all of that. And I think you're right. People don't know, myself included, we have a hard time learning how to even identify what it means to be hurt, and then how to reconcile that hurt or that trauma or that pain without then hurting or causing pain to somebody else. That whole hurt people notion. Mm-hmm. It's really, really evident. I've seen it in my own behavior. I've experienced it and seen it in yours, and I see it every day in my clientele, which is probably why I'm in this space of okay, I got to figure out how to be the healthiest version of me. Mm-hmm. And perhaps why you're kind of in a similar place. I got to work on my hurt.
Yeah. I think some of the language that some people use once they get to a place to kind of make a decision and do something different is the let go and let God, mm-hmm. right? What is necessary in order for the universe to play out how it's going to play out. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that doesn't happen because it's scary to let go, mm-hmm. right? It's scary to let go and not release yourself from the outcome. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I think one of the conversations that we've had essentially is no matter what, we're family, mm-hmm. right? No matter what happens, we love each other and we're going to take care of each other, right? And I think that what you get from some people is oh, you crazy. What's wrong? Man, that's stupid. You blah, blah, blah. But I think what people have to understand is, and I never really thought about it until you mentioned it to me, is we spent almost more time together than your whole childhood. Like 17 years is your whole childhood.
Well, our whole adult life,
our whole adult life, right? And we've been through it all. and we've been through things that some people be like, I don't know how y'all still together, right? I ask myself that sometimes.
Who you telling?
You know what I mean? Like,
Me too.
and I think a more important question sometimes is, you know, are you supposed to be together that way?
Yeah.
Right? And is there a different way that we're together? Right? Because when you talk about romantic relationships, marriages, I think some of the language that we begin to think about is just like life partnership versus, you know, oh, we've been married, blah, blah, blah. Because at the end of the day, whether we're married or not, I mean, we have children. Like, you know, we will rock with each other just how we are. You know what I'm saying? And at the same time, it still can be scary because when you're used to a certain type of relationship, or at least calling it a certain type of relationship, and it's no longer that, or it's no longer called that, it shakes everything up.
Yeah, and I think that's to be expected. But the other thing I would hate to lose here is, like, again, I think there has to be respect for the union and the relationship, but that doesn't recuse us from individual, like, lived experience and responsibility. So I think it's not just, you know, what's the thing you said? Because it was really profound. You were like, relationship in this way. So yeah, there's consideration for that. But I think it's also consideration for, okay, what is this particular love or this union? What has this taught me about me? Like, what is it revealed to me about me?
Yeah.
Not just about you. And I think that's the easiest thing to do in relationships is, like, I ask clientele this a lot. I'll say, well, you're describing a rupture in your marriage or your dating relationship. Well, what has it taught you? It's taught me that men ain't shit. Okay, I think we're missing something. Like, okay, maybe it's taught you that, but maybe it's also taught you that your boundaries aren't very mature. Or maybe it's also taught you that your habits around who you're picking. And I'm not saying it's your fault that you've been harmed, but I'm saying, where is your power?
Yeah.
It's not just in your perspective or perception of another person. It's also in, what are you learning about yourself? And so I do want to thank you, because I think I've learned the most about myself through loving you. And I also want to express gratitude, because I think that one of the things you've also taught me is love in an unconditional form, where it's really confusing sometimes, because while we're having this kind of hard conversation about the dynamic of our relationship, there's on one level, I feel like it's the more secure it's ever been, like, in certain ways.
Yeah.
Which is really weird. You know, when you've accumulated a lot of things and you can still see that your person actually cares about you, it's kind of like, dang, that's really a gift of unconditional love. On the other hand, you accumulate a lot of trauma, you become the trigger. I know I'm your trigger. We've talked about this. And I think that it's important that you know that you're mine.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that just as I have to be accountable for the way in which I disrupt your peace with some of the ways in which I've hurt you, you represent the same thing for me. And it's really hard when you're looking at someone that brings you so much joy and that has gifted you so much love, but who's also responsible for so much of your pain. Yeah. That is a hard thing to navigate.
Man, and I think you know, when it's all said and done, I think being able to just acknowledge that, like, I think at no point have I said to myself, and sometimes you don't say it or you don't feel it, but it comes out naturally. Have I said, you know, like, you're my trigger, but I'm not your like. I never, because I think trying to be introspective and think about what's going on internally, the questions have been like, okay, what's up with me? What did I do? Or how am I towards, or how does she feel? Like, those are like those questions. And I think to be able to name it. And once again, I think so many people, they feel everything we're talking about.
Yeah.
They'll never have the conversation, or they will never say it. Right. And I think people have to ask, like, you know, because some people actually are tired of their relationship. And I think the piece that people miss is you have to ask yourself, are you tired of the relationship, or are you tired of the relationship on how it's been, the way it's been?
Right. Or is this just an indicator to you that you've outgrown that type of relationship?
Yeah.
Like you've outgrown that dynamic, or you are more, people think it's fun being healthy. Like it's hard being healthy.
Yeah.
It is really, like, mentally, emotionally, financially, spiritually.
Yeah.
It is very difficult to curate.
Yeah.
The benefits far. Bye. Gammy's nurse is leaving. Oh, shoot. See? You see what I'm saying? Now I got to put Gammy on the camera so I can make sure she good. But, like, people really think everybody go to therapy. It's on trend now because they want to feel better.
Yeah.
Do you want to be better? Because that's really what is required of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, to your point, it might be that there's still love there and there's still a future there, but it's got to be transformed. It's got to look different, or there's healing that needs to happen, or there's atonement. Like somebody needs to reconcile a trauma that they've caused.
Yeah.
Or a pain that they've caused. Somebody has to maybe be more accountable for something, or maybe someone has to be more aware of something.
Hold on. It's not like you walking through water right now.
You can hear. Bye. Oh, she sleep. Okay.
But well,
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean.
See, we could have paused the tape on that, but we not doing that. You got to see.
Yeah.
This is the life we living over here.
Just the reality. We'll see what happens. But I think, you know, so many people, and I got to acknowledge, like, it's scary to have certain conversations.
Yeah.
It's scary to have the conversation and then actually have a decision, make a decision, right? It's scary to make the decision and then not know what's going to happen after you make the decision, right? So it's so scary, but I think, you know, what a lot of people end up doing is just saying, you know what, I'm just going to deal with the chaos. I'm going to deal with the hurt. I'm going to deal with, right? But never actually deal with it.
No.
And when I say deal with it, just stay in whatever is happening currently. Right? And so, you know, and this isn't, because I think what a lot of people do is they take this and think, oh yeah, my romantic relationships, this is friendships. This is your relationship with your job.
Your family.
Your relationship with your family, relationship with yourself, right? This is the hard, you got to have the hard conversations in all of these areas. And I think it's somebody that's, you know, watching us right now that is dealing with it in their marriage, in their long-term relationship, in their friendship, right? Because I tell people all the time, there's an expiration date on loyalty. And some of us, because we can't have the hard conversation with our friends and our family, we stay loyal to them, and it hasn't benefited us in years.
It's actually doubling down on your trauma.
Man.
And really impacting how you show up in the world, like how you are in relationship to yourself and everybody around you. And it becomes so insidious, like so normalized that people don't even notice.
Yeah.
You don't even notice it.
That's why I kind of get tired of some people that see folks on social media and they say things like, oh, those are my relationship goals. And in the back of my head, I'm like, you sure you want them problems? Because you don't know what they're dealing with behind the scenes, right? And it don't mean that people don't have great relationships. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is too often we don't know and understand what it actually takes to create a great relationship, starting with self.
Are you kind of acknowledging that, like, a part of how people are arriving at this relationship goals ideal is based upon limited information?
Oh, for
it's
sure.
like you don't even really, like,
They
if you
don't-
really knew, would you still feel like it's
Exactly.
going? Because can you really endure? People do that to us. I think that's a part of why this is such an important episode, because you gonna still see Joe and I laughing and hanging out.
Yeah.
Like, we still gonna be kicking it. Like, we still gonna do things together. We're still, that's my person. And we're going through a hard season, like a really hard time.
Yeah.
And that's true too. Like one doesn't discredit the other. But I think that's a part of why we're doing this, because it's like, you know, you're right. Like, would it be relationship goals if you really knew what was required of you? If you really knew what was required of you.
Of you. Not the other person. Of you.
And I'm not just talking about tolerance and endurance.
Right.
I'm not just talking about that. Like I'm not saying that.
I feel like you're talking about the work that you need to do.
That each
The
individual person has to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the other thing, once again, and we've talked about this and we share this, you know, when you're in long-term relationships, you have to always understand that we evolve.
Right.
Well,
change.
I hope that we evolve, right? And as we evolve, you have to understand the other person may cohere and you may not be going there, right? It might be slower. So I think it's important for us to understand, like, as your person is evolving, as you're evolving, are you having the conversations to be like, hey, what's new? What's different? What's like, where you at now? Oh, you don't believe that no more. Oh, that's how you think, right? And I don't think these are the conversations we have. We sometimes assume and expect that the way in which I met you, you're going to be the same.
I was gonna say something intentionally petty just to be funny.
Go ahead.
Should I?
Go ahead.
Can I? It was to be like a
Be
joke.
funny.
Kind of like cutting your hair.
So what I was saying, y'all,
Like, I'm just saying.
told you she could be petty.
That was very different. No, that wasn't
No.
that.
I know you was being funny, but I think
But you're right. People change. They evolve.
only
They
reason that's funny is because we've had multiple conversations about the hair situation.
We done with this
So
hair,
I
y'all.
can
We
take
done.
it. I
We
can
done
take
with
it.
the hair.
And I think that's a point. Like, when
And I'm about to get braids, so I don't want to hear nothing about it.
but I think that's one of the things that we have to think about. What are the conversations you're having in terms of you being well and doing the work that you need in order for you to be great in the world, not just with somebody romantically, marriage, all of that, but just to be here and create the life and career that you desire.
So let me ask you this. So what do you think is needed for you in this moment in your life to be well? Like, what do you need in order to be more well?
A new therapist.
Mm-hmm.
My own space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need any, and I don't want to say any, but I don't need any, like, anything feeling like I gotta look up and down, left and right. Like, I just need, like,
You need safety.
safety for sure. And I think the one that kind of hurts is to be honest, and it's not all the time, but enough where I don't want to be around you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that doesn't mean you know, I don't love you or anything like that. But I think being honest about it, and that's what we talk about, the hold space, create space. And the other part of that is I'll be thinking, can she be around me?
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I'm not. I think I'm not. I know that. Like, that's the other thing too. Like, whether you say it or not, you can feel it. So it's nice to just know what is true.
Yeah.
And I understand why it feels that way. And I also feel that way.
Yeah.
So I think that's where empathy is. It's like, you know, I think what is required of me is I need to really minimize stimulation. I need less demands on my energy. Like, I need that. And I need to feel, I need affirmative energy around me, affirmative words around me. I need supporting energy around me. I need a little more routine because so much is unpredictable, like with GAM and other things. So I need like more security and more routine and peace. And so in that regard, I could see why you can't be near me, and I need you to not be near me, because I also need someone that I love, someone that I've created a life with, and someone who is raising children. I need you to be well.
Yeah.
So I have a vested interest in you doing what is necessary to be well. And I also need space too. And what's really, it's a sad thing, but I think what's really nice is like to be in a place where I personally feel secure enough to know that that doesn't mean anything about your love for me. It really is more a manifestation of your love for me in a way. Like if I can't bring that energy, then it's not serving you.
Yeah.
So I respect it, even if I don't always like it or it doesn't always feel good. And I think it's important to say I understand it because I've been there.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I think the things that are kind of still sitting on me is like one of the things you said that when I asked, what do you need in this time? Essentially, you said a new therapist. And I think like as a Black man, that's a very profound statement in this culture. And I commend you for the willingness to like seek therapeutic support for the purpose of healing your trauma. You know? I think that's like huge. Get your healing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, well, I will just say this, like, I've had therapists, and I think sometimes your therapist could only take you to a certain level.
Right.
And then you have to get another therapist. And, you know, one of the things I want to make sure to acknowledge is that your therapist is not your pastor. Your therapist is not your best friend. Your
Right.
therapist is not your teacher. Right? Now, can they give you some sound advice? Absolutely. Right? But a therapist is a trained professional. This is what they do. And I think, you know, as we move forward, and as I move forward, I want to make sure that people go get what it is that they need versus thinking, oh, I got it. Somebody,
But what if you don't even know?
but so
Like, what if you don't know what you need?
but that's the thing. Somebody said to me, they said, you know, some of the stuff that you've been through, you just need time. Now, is that part of the equation? Absolutely. But that's not the whole equation, right? So when you say, what if you don't know what you need? I think that's when you have that sound counsel, right? Those people around you that can give you sound counsel to help you and say, hey, have you ever thought about this?
But see, I think a part of what you're saying, which is huge though, is that there's a choosing that has to happen without a certain level of insight. Because I know a lot of people that could really benefit from a therapist and they don't think they need one.
Yeah.
Like they genuinely be feeling like they good. And I'm like, okay, you know, like
I got
really?
people in my head right now. I can be like,
Yo,
this person,
let me tell you. So
Yeah.
I think, or it'll kind of be this really disconnected thing of like, oh yeah, therapy's good for them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, for you.
Yeah.
You know, so a part of it, what you're saying is you don't even need to know that you need it to choose it. Like, why not?
Yeah. Because
Like-
sometimes you don't know what you need until you're actually getting it.
Yeah.
Right. And even like we've been in situations where, and I think we've talked about this before, but the one time we went in, we saw the guy and we knew that ain't the guy. That ain't the therapist for us. Right.
Yeah.
But like the people that you have, this is why the people around you are so important.
The people you place in your presence.
You know my 4
Dr.
Ps.
Joe?
You are a product.
Hashtag Dr. Joe. That's the
of the
Dr. Joe
people
quote.
you place in your presence. I'm gonna say it again. You are a product of the people you place in your presence. And I can't say that enough, because when you're in a situation and you haven't been in that situation before, or you're so mentally tapped and at capacity where you don't know what to do, this is where the people in your circle helps to get you back in alignment of into the direction that you need to go into, right?
And I'll go you one better, because the other part of this, kind of the point we've been making too, is you are also a product of the people. You are a person in someone else's presence.
For sure.
So what are you bringing to other people's space? is important too.
Yeah.
So it's not just about, people are saying this a lot these days. I'm gonna protect my peace. Well, you might be out here disrupting other people's peace.
That's true.
So it's like a shared accountability. Like, yes, we are hurt by, I think even in the context of what we're really owning in this episode, I know that I have to atone and be accountable for the ways in which I've harmed you as someone that I love. And I also know that I have been harmed by you. Like, we're in this together. Like, for better or for worse, through sickness and in health, whatever. So it's like, it's the shared accountability thing. So you got to get what you need. And if you don't know what you need, choose wise counsel to develop enlightenment and awareness. Right?
Yeah.
The other thing this doctor said, another good quotable is, you got to break in to break through. Is that the
Don't
other?
be trying to steal my stuff.
That's another Dr. Joe
Yeah,
Johnson.
you gotta break in to break through, because
That's real.
everybody's looking for a breakthrough, but you got to do that internal work. And I want to be very clear too, because when you sit around and you know something's not right, but you haven't done the work that you need, or you just don't know what it is that you need yet, the unfortunate part of that is that the people who sometimes are around you, after a while, they get tired of that and they don't want to be around you no more. So if you're not doing the work on self, you might lose the people who actually love you and rock with you.
Yeah.
Right. And then some people will say, well, if they love me and rock me, but they won't leave me. But you can't go and tap out everybody else's energy though. You know what I'm saying? And that's why when you talk about, reciprocating and the reciprocity of what's necessary, right? We have to think about, okay, how am I impacting you? How are you impacting me? And what work needs to be done? And too many people, they know something's not right. And sometimes they know it, but they're so used to it. They're so used to, oh man, my life, I don't have this, they're so used to that they don't even know how to put that first foot forward. You know what I'm saying? Or they get comfortable in that, oh, I ain't got no money. Oh, I'm broke, or I'm fat, or I'm this. And to me, that insinuates that sometimes the people around them might not be the best, not all the time, but also it insinuates to me that the issue is so deep that they can't even get out their own funk to say, I need help.
Well, yeah, and because we know, if we're going to go clinical for just a hot second, we know that one primary feature of a depression is hopelessness, and it is helplessness.
Yeah.
And, we start to have depressogenic thoughts, like where everything we experience is filtered through a glass half empty, kind of a self-loathing perspective. Yeah. And that is a feature of depression. So when you're encountering people that are just always like, woe is me, woe is me, woe is me, a lot of times it's that hopeless, helpless feature. So I would also say, when you have people in your life that you think have some wisdom and they know you well, take heed to the observations that they have, because they might see something that you don't see.
Sure.
It's very hard for me to see my back. Yeah. I can't see my back, but you could say, I could be like, dang, something hurt. You could say, oh, it hurts because you got this gash on your back.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be like, man, get off me. Like, why you look, you're trying to help me notice something that I can't see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the people around you might be able to say, man, you've been acting real irritable lately. You all right?
Yep.
Like, maybe you should go talk to somebody. I'm good. No, but maybe you should go talk to somebody, though. You know?
And then, like, for a lot of people, to your point, I think a lot of people, there's signs of they don't even trust the people around them to listen to the sound advice that they give, right?
True.
So they'll hang around people all day. And I think it is connected to that feeling of hopelessness and just, right? But I think when you hear something over and over and over again, it is okay to at least, let me check that out. Because if you got 4 or 5 people that mention, man, you've been sleeping way more than you usually do. You don't, your energy, if multiple people say that, that might be a sign to say, you know what, let me check out why am I like that? I don't see it, but why am I like
Right.
that, right? And you know, it's just when you're hurting, sometimes that path seems like you can never get to the end, you know?
And when you hurting, you start hurting.
Yeah, that's true.
It comes out.
That's
You
true.
start hurting people.
That's true.
When you hurting, you start hurting. You really do. So with all that said, you know, I think I can appreciate the level of accountability that we're trying to practice and taking around, like, how can we be better individual people in a way that serves not only ourselves individually, but our relationship and our family and the people that we impact and have influence over.
Yeah.
And this is a big part of that. Like, because shame is really not useful. Like, you can't, while there is information that's always sacred, you have to have, vulnerability isn't about telling everybody everything. That's not wise. That's not wisdom. You want to be intentional with how you share your life and your experience. It's not for everybody. With that said, shame, hiding what feels true or what feels honest, really breeds more dysfunction.
Yeah. Yeah.
So get your healing.
But I think that I'm glad you brought that word up, and I'll just say, you know, I think everybody should kind of understand the difference between guilt and shame, right?
Yeah.
Like, guilt is feeling bad about what you did. Shame is feeling bad about who you are, right? And some of us get that mixed up. And a lot of us done some things that we probably feel guilty about, right? And a lot of us done had moments where we probably feel shame about who we are, right? And a lot of us done probably had a combination of both. And the biggest thing is, ask yourself, how can I consistently be a better person than I was the previous day?
That's it.
Right? That's all you can do.
That's
So
it.
when you talk about get your healing, I mean, we trying to do that. And some of y'all still probably wondering, well, what's going on with y'all? Don't worry about it.
What's going on with you?
What's going on with you?
Like, that's the bottom line here. But look, you the last thing I'll say for real is, I like how you really try to, like, define and break down the difference between guilt and shame. I do want to say, I want to acknowledge that sometimes shame, we're not connected to it. Like, so sometimes shame is very much influencing the way we live, and we don't notice it because it's not a feeling. So a lot of people that have endured a lot of trauma, there's a term called post-traumatic growth. And a lot of times when you've endured trauma, whether that's ACEs, like childhood traumas, or there's small trauma, big trauma, which I won't get into. But when you've endured things that have really compromised your heart, your soul, and you're resilient, you've overcome, you've endured, you worked through. Sometimes an impact of that is almost like a disassociation or like a disconnection. So you might not feel sadness, you might not feel shame, but it's evident in the way you choose things and the things you don't do and the things you say. So it might be manifesting more behaviorally than it is felt, because people will say things like, I don't feel shame. You not connected to it, but you're living shame.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can appreciate that you define that. So what's your takeaway, Dr. Joe?
My takeaway is, you've called me babe like 2 or 3 times. You called me Joe like 7.
Interchangeably.
But real talk, no, my takeaway is, you know, I appreciate the relationship we've had thus far, right? It ain't been easy. Been a lot of hard, but even through the hard, I can still appreciate it. You know what I mean? And I appreciate how we're able to have this conversation, because I know for a fact I would never have a conversation like this some years ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, with that said, like, you know, no matter what, we're always family, and, you know, it's like, let go, let God. You know, so that's where I'm at. That's my takeaway for today. And I'll still stay on record. I still love you.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's no that ain't going nowhere. You know what I mean? And so I always got to put that on record.
On record. On vinyl.
Hey, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? You got?
Yeah, I think my takeaway is just like one of the things I said to you a long time ago. I was like, I think because you were like, man, I wish we had more samples, like more examples of like really healthy, good relationships.
Yeah.
And I said, that would have been nice. It would be nice to have more blueprints that we could emulate. I was like, but to be honest, I'm most inspired by our relationship. I feel like there's so much that I can honestly express agitation about because I do have that. I don't want to sugarcoat or make it sound like all roses.
Yeah.
But I also really respect it. Like I respect the eras and the lessons and the struggles, and like I really do respect it. And so I think the takeaway for me is I just want to say thank you. I want to say I love you. I want to say I believe in you.
Yeah.
I want to say you get on my damn nerves sometimes. And that you still deserve the best. Despite that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my takeaway.
Well, thank you for that. I received that. And with that said, y'all, as you can see,
We are at our destination. It's been a ride. It's time to get out and go eat.
time to eat. But thank y'all so much. Make sure you subscribe, you follow, you hit the notification button, you share this podcast, you share this with somebody who you know is going through it right now. All right, comment, all that fun stuff. Comment, share, subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff. But as you can see,
It's one hell of a ride.
hell of a ride. Y'all take care.